I'm honored to be part of hosting this forum with Senator Whitehouse, Senator Portman, Senator Klobuchar, and I also want to thank Acting Director Botticelli and the Office of National Drug Control Policy. This issue is an issue that is hitting every state and every person. And we all know someone who has struggled with addiction. And right now we are facing a crisis when it comes to heroin and when it comes to also the connection between prescription drug overuse and heroin. And let me just share, right before Thanksgiving, I met with a family in New Hampshire, Doug and Pam Griffin, and they recently lost their 20-year-old daughter, Courtney, from a heroin overdose. And it certainly wasn't easy for the Griffins to come and speak about what they went through with their daughter and how they feel. But they really want to share their story. And there are many families across this country that are finding themselves in the same place as the Griffins. Now, Courtney was a beautiful 20-year-old young woman with her full life ahead of her, and an enthusiastic person who really the sky would have been the limit but for becoming addicted to heroin. She aspired to join the Marine Corps and actually had already attended boot camp. She was a charter member of the Kingston Lions Club. She played the French horn, her whole life ahead of her. And in high school, things got off in the wrong direction. And her parents started noticing prescription drugs missing from their house. And then from there, after she graduated high school, her addiction grew. And it went from there, from prescription drugs to heroin. She started stealing from her parents' business, and her parents were desperate to know what to do to help her. And I'll tell you, these were a family that had some means. You know, they're not wealthy, but they did have some ability to help their daughter, and they didn't know what to do. And like too many families in their situation, they don't know where to go. They don't know where to go in the community and to turn for help. And what they shared with me, they tried to help get Courtney treatment. She did go in one treatment program, but that frankly wasn't enough. The treatment programs they wanted to get her into, she was denied coverage by the insurance company, and they were told that she couldn't get coverage because it was not a life or death situation. Well, clearly it was a life or death situation. And we know that because we've seen so many people who are losing their lives to heroin. So many people from every single background that have so much potential in our society. And what I will say, you know, Courtney and her family turned to local law enforcement, and they did connect with a very caring police officer, but he also was in a position where, what do you do to get help? And in fact, they were given recommendation that they had to actually turn their daughter out of their house so that she could get the treatment that she needed. Can you imagine? Imagine having to turn your child that you love out of your house because you don't know where to go. That's wrong. And we can't continue to allow things like that to happen. So part of what we're dealing in all of this is looking at this in a comprehensive way about how we can address this public health crisis in our communities and across the country. And so people like the Griffins know where to go and know how to get help and help their daughter, because they are not alone in all of this. And unfortunately, there are too many stories like Courtney's, too many people who have lost their lives to addiction. It's a heartbreaking story, and one that too many people have to tell. And so in New Hampshire, in my home state, while I was home, I also had this opportunity this fall to actually do a ride-along with our fire department in our largest city, Manchester. I was only there for a few hours. I went to a heroin OD. There was a young man on the floor, and the first responders there gave him Narcan, and it was like rising from the dead. And I saw it happen. But what struck me about being in that situation and watching the first responders was all of the impact of that OD of that young man, because in the corner, in a crib, was a baby, an infant. There was another young woman over there, and here the firefighter was lifting the baby and giving the baby over to the young woman. This is an issue that if we don't work together on, we've got a whole generation of young people and of children that are being impacted by addiction. And in my state right now, when I've seen the number of deaths, it's been shocking. Last year, heroin deaths in New Hampshire were 5 times greater than 2010. We have seen a dramatic increase. And my prior job, I was Attorney General of the state, so I know the Chief Medical Examiner well. And he's just shocked at how many of these cases he is seeing in terms of deaths that he deals with every day. So I'm really honored to work with Senators Whitehouse, Portman, Klobuchar, and Leahy on the Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act. I've also been working with Senator Joe Donnelly, who's very interested on this issue, and we've introduced legislation separately as well. Some of those provisions have been incorporated in the Comprehensive Addiction and Recovery Act. But having met with the first responders in my state and law enforcement, they will be the first to tell you that we cannot arrest our way out of this problem. That yes, we do need to have enforcement, especially on the people that are really making the money off these drugs. But if we don't look at the treatment end, if we don't look at how we support people in recovery and make sure that those resources are in the community, we will never arrest our way out of this problem. And so that's why a comprehensive approach, what you are all doing, is so important, and we need your help, and we need your advice. And I want to thank you for what you're doing every single day. Count me as someone who wants to work with you, because I don't want to meet another family like the Griffins who tells me their story about how they lost their beautiful daughter. And I know none of us wants to hear that story, and we can make a difference on it. I think sometimes people feel like this cycle that we're dealing with addiction, that somehow we should just all throw up our hands because the cases keep coming. Well, we need to be really heartened that we can make a difference. And knowing that we work together, and this is an issue that crosses every party line, and this is an issue that hits everyone, that if we come together, not only in forums like this, but bring the community together to understand and to work together and to reduce the stigma so that people can get the help that they need, we can make a difference. So let's not get discouraged. I look forward to hearing your ideas and working with you, and I thank you for what you are doing every day to make a difference in people's lives.